So, very warm welcome to everyone who is here, and also good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are, to those who are watching on YouTube. I think we're about 200 people following this course, and so lots on YouTube. And so this is the sixth teaching in our series on the Mahamudra prayer from the third IIIrd Karmapa. So let's start today with our usual very, very important, very precious moment of motivation, where we try to find our very, very best mind, our purest heart, our deepest Dharma motivation, our best love for all our fellow sentient beings. And then we make our inclusive mind, taking great care to include the people who figured strongly in our life, positively or negatively, no matter, but including everyone in a vast perspective of many lifetimes, all of those who were our mothers, fathers, friends, enemies, close ones in past lives, and who will be in future lives. And with our beautiful bodhicitta motivation, where we realize the value of Dharma, and in particular, the Mahayana Dharma of loving care and of Buddha nature. And we want to listen to these teachings with all our heart and learn, grow, change, blossom, so that we can become a friend for the world. Sonje chodon soji chonam la jancho bado dane chapsunje. Tagi jinso jipe sanam je, prola penchara sanje drupara sho. Semchen tamche dewa dang dewe jodan dem para juche. Dongal dong dongal ji jodang shalvara juche. Dongal mepe dewa tampa dang men shalvara juche. Neren chadan ne tang shalwe tanyom chempola ne para juche. Doje changchen talo naro dong mapa mela cheche kampopa. Tusum shecha kunchen kamapa cheshi chunje jupa sinam dang. Drita sausum paden drupa so sablam chaja chela nyanipe. Yame drogon tapo kajula so wandep so kajula manam. Jupa zino namtara jinjilo. Shenlo gomje kampara sumpashin seno kunna chakshen me padam. Sede data chopi gomchen la nyeko shenpa me para jinjilo. Mogu gomje gora sumpashin menga tego jepe lamana. Chundu sowan depe gomchen la chomen mogu jewara jinjilo. Yengme gomje ngashara sumpashin kansha tope ngo somade. Nacho de karajope gomchen la gomcha lodan chalwara jinjilo. Namto ngo chukra sumpashin Chiang mayen cheyang chawala. Mangaro pa chawe gomchen la Kode yerme topara jinjelu. Deyata shame shamawate shameta shadru. Am kore mare jite karota ke ore te jowate olayane. Beshoda nimale malapana ye kukure kaka grase. Krasana om mukhi para mukhi mukhi shamedawane savagraha bandhanane ne grihitva savabara pravadina vimukta marapasha savidva buddha mudra anugatita savamari butsarita parishuddhi bhiga shantu savamara kama. Alden sawe lama rinpoche, dagye chewara pende den shola. Kadren Chempo Gone Jesungte Koson Tuji Majuk Sadhu Sal. So it's well, our usual Sisyphus procedure, where at the beginning we go back and look a little bit at where we ended, and usually I add a little bit, and then we move forward a bit. So this backwards and forwards, to remind you that the main content of the last verse and the verse before, something very, very, very important we all need to know if we practice Mahamudra, if we practice Dzogchen, if we practice what is called Vajrayana. Vajrayana has 4 main levels, and at the very top of the top level, we have what's called highest Tantra, and then Mother Tantra, Father Tantra, Non-Dual Tantra, or Maha Anu Ati Tantras in Dzogchen, at the very top of those. Or it's very important that we understand what are called the 2 natures that run parallel and totally different, the one from the other. It says in Maitreya's teachings, there is not one atom in common. Please remember that, because so many mistakes are made not knowing that there is not one atom in common between the 2 natures. One nature is our own stream of consciousness. It makes you. You are unique. Nobody is like you. You are an endless story. No one can find when your story started. And it's not quite finished yet. It may take some more lifetimes. That unique stream of consciousness, and then not just you, but hundreds, thousands, millions, billions, endless numbers, really endless numbers of streams of consciousness like you exist on that relative level. So on a relative level, we have streams of consciousness, but in particular, yours, mine. The characteristics of those so clearly highlighted by the Buddha, they are impermanent, means they're changing all the time. That's number one. That they involve suffering, sometimes a lot, sometimes less, but always some suffering, and always the suffering of existing. In our case, being born in a human shell. And having everything that this body of ours brings, whether it's a deva body, a spirit's body, an animal's body, always the suffering of being locked up in that kit. But always suffering, so impermanent suffering, and then no self. There is no lasting you or me. No fixed Ken. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. Never changing Ken, the Ken who suffers, yes. So the stream of consciousness has those 3 marks of existence. Changing, suffering, no self. The other parallel identity is Buddha nature, not one atom in common with this stream of consciousness. Whatever we are, this stream of consciousness that we analyze in the Shravaka way, in the Mahayana way, into components, whatever we are can never know, feel, touch, see, hear, smell, taste this other nature. It cannot be known by this thing that you are and I am. It can only know itself. That is Buddha mind. It never changed, so it's changed less. Not like the consciousness which changes, changed less. The changeless nature always has been, is right now, always will be. It doesn't change. It's amazing, amazing. There's no suffering. It is nirvana. Nirvana means no more suffering. There's never been suffering there. The idea of suffering, there's no place. And then it is the true identity. It's what you are and what I am, and what you are and what I am is that same thing. It's an identical identity. Id, this ID, Latin root is amazing. Id, identity, identical for you and me. These two natures. So that in the last verse, we were looking at purification. So the texts tell us very clearly, Buddha nature teachings, the ultimate nature that's always been, there's nothing to do with it. Very famous quote, it will be the same after as it was before. After means when you become Buddha, after all your path and all your journey and all your meditation and practice, like the Buddha, 3 cosmic eons, when he becomes Buddha, what he becomes was always been. It's the same after your path as it was before you even started. So there's nothing to do. Purification is not about that nature. When we look at all of our Dharma practice, whatever you're doing, and when we look at it relatively, you are, you are developing the 2 accumulations. It's like putting money in your bank account, or burying your gold under your floorboards or whatever. Developing the 2 accumulations, building up your wisdom and building up your store of goodness, good karma, power. No way. It looks like that. But when we look carefully, all of our Dharma practice, all of it is purification. So let me give you a very simple example. We think we are becoming more and more generous. I hope so. It's the first paramita. It's the first and easiest area to develop. It's the basis for all the others. Giving of ourselves more and more to everyone, being less and less selfish. So you might think, I'm becoming more and more generous. But you're not. Total generosity is the nature of pure mind. If somebody needs and you have and you can spare, this is the most natural thing to share. But we are at the worst selfish, or maybe at the less worst. We are scared to let go of what we have. We're in a habit of looking after ourselves and our extended self, our family, our type, our clan, and so on. So we are getting rid of this limitation, and the limitation of not seeing the need in others, shutting off our mind to the poverty, whatever it is, material poverty, spiritual poverty. So our path is one of purifying our habits that limit us. When you look at meditation, I'm getting a better and better meditator, But you're not. You're getting rid of your distractions, your distracted mind. And then we use words like let your mind rest. Not make super effort of concentration and hold some super reality inside your head. Learn how to relax into what is by letting go of your endless distractions, nervousness, busy inner energies, and so on, how to settle them. So all of our path is one of purification. That's why we had the verse about what is the purifier and so on. Now, last week, then it was verse, 7 or 8 last week. Verse 7, about purification. And I ended up quite quickly saying, and the result, the purified result, is Dharmakaya. This is like when you've got the gold out of the ore is all gone. When you've got the butter out of the milk, when you've got the oil out of the sesame, the end result is Dharmakaya. And everybody nods in Dharmakaya. Have you got a clue what Dharmakaya is? Not really. Not really. Dharmakaya's the other parallel reality that doesn't change. So words can't tell you what it is. We can't see it, hear it, smell it, taste it, touch it. Our consciousness can't conscious it in meditation, our stream of consciousness. So I did mention that last time a few times. I used some rough language. I said what we learn to do through our practice is shut up. And we can shut up so much that the truth can shine through. We make holes in the cloud for the sky to shine through. So, but anyway, Dharmakaya, I did want to say some words that I hope will be useful. And so here they are. Dharma, Kaya. Dharma, you may remember, has 10 meanings, but the main meaning is things. Kaya means the body, literally, or the embodiment. The feeling is roughly one of the space or the expanse. So it's the body of things. Of course, Dharma also means Buddha's teaching. But then what does Buddha teach us about? Things. Things. Everything. Anything. How it manifests, why it manifests. Karma. Cause and effect. Consciousness, awareness. The 5 aggregates and how they work and so on. So this Dharma, things, and Buddha's truthful teaching about things, we're looking at the body of those things. Now, remember when we looked at the basis that we're working on, it says the basis is the 2 truths. And I made a point of emphasizing it's not the ultimate truth alone, which couldn't exist anyway, so that we get rid of relative truth. And then there we are in ultimate truth. Relative truth's gone. The basis is the 2 truths, ultimate and relative. So in the end, when we get to Dharmakaya, it is the infinite, true expanse of whatever you want to call it, the universe, everyone, everything. This Buddha knows everything. Of course, if relative realities disappeared, there's nothing to know. We need to think about these things. Me sitting here talking won't help you. We need to think about what is Buddha? What is Buddha's wisdom? Wisdom of what? If emptiness or shunyata means nothing, he's wise about nothing, and even his wisdom is nothing. Is that it? Well, you might just as well, I don't know what. What are we struggling for endless lifetimes to just become nothing, knowing nothing? If Buddha knows everything, then what's this journey all about? And if we've got some idea of Dharmakaya as being like a huge emptiness, like empty cosmic space with nothing in it, then we're wrong. We didn't get it right. If we think there's some kind of ultimate reality, bye-bye, and have a little label round your neck, gone to Dharmacharya, back in 2 hours. Please do not disturb. And there you are in Dharmacharya. No. And we're not doing it here. I need 10 talks maybe. But to really understand this, we'd need to go through the stages of shunyata. Now, my first teacher, Khenpo Tsotim Jamtso, composed a text. You know, in the beginning, before he came to the West, he was abbot of Rumtek Monastery. And at that time, there was the 16th IIIrd Karmapa and all the young tulkus, the 4 regents and other tulkus were all studying. Khenpo Tsotim was their abbot. Yet there were 2 abbots in Rumtek teaching, Trungpa Rinpoche and Khenpo Tsotim. And in order to make the teachings on shunyata very available, under the Karmapa's guidance, Khenpo Tsotim wrote a text called The Progressive Stages of Shunyata, Emptiness, Voidness. And it takes us through the 2 main Hinayana views and the 2 main Mahayana views, up to Shentong, Rangtong, the Kagyu view, Dzogchen view, and so on. That takes time. And I would love to have the time when we all take a holiday from the Mahamudra prayer and spend 10 weeks together in another time, space reality, so we can come back in 1 minute's time and we've done that. But we can't. So we need to understand Dharmakaya is not just some empty space. Dharmakaya is the embodiment of everything and everyone. Always has been, always will be. It's beyond time, beyond past and future, just is. So I did need to mention that about Dharmakaya, and then now we need to move on to the next verse. And so let me give you the transmission first. Okay. Jila drodok churpatawideng de la mayeng jongwa gompine gomdung kunla tsaljong churpicho ta gom churpe deng dang temparasho. Cut through all misinterpretations of the basis. Well, when we get there, you could also say to cut through all interpretations of the basis, but for the moment, to cut through all misinterpretations of the basis is to have confidence in the view. To attend to that undistractedly is the crux of the meditation or practice. To become proficient in all aspects of the meditation is the best action. May I gain confidence in the view, the meditation, and the conduct or the action. Now, here we think we need to go and look at the structure so you can see what's going on. So, need to share the screen. Can you wave a hand if you can see? Yep, good. So, in the earlier verses that we've just done, In blue, you can see the first 4 of the 5 big points of this prayer. They're called specific components. We saw, first of all, we were praying for the best support or basis. That means the best rebirth. You'll remember we wanted a precious human rebirth. And then to meet good gurus and so on and so on. Second thing was praying for the wisdom, the prajna, that understands the path properly through study, reflection, meditation. Third point, so that was one verse. Third point, just one verse, we were praying for the best path, the unmistaken path, free from extremes of exist, doesn't exist, and so on. And now we're in this huge section, which takes us almost to the end of the prayer, for praying to practice the path correctly. And this is so important, so easy to get it wrong. So this is many verses. The last verse, number 7, which you see highlighted in yellow, is a brief, a concise, or was a brief discussion of what we need to understand. What is the ground that we're working on, our Buddha nature? How are we working on it? Through the Vajra yoga, the diamond yoga, the Mahamudra. What are we doing in there? We're getting rid of the stains. You remember last week, everything that's dualistic, everything that makes the stream of consciousness continue to function. And then what is the result? I just mentioned Dharmacharya. So now, did it scroll up on your screens? Can you wave a hand? Yeah, good, thank you. Now, having looked briefly at what we just did, what must be understood, then we look at then how do we meditate? The verse I just gave you the transmission for is a brief explanation of our meditation that needs to be practiced. And then you'll see we get in the structure, it gets so complicated, sections and subsections and so on. As we go through the verses, we're going into the details of practice. But this verse is the overview of this part 4, which is a very, very big part. So we need the overview before we plunge into the details. Okay, so that's that. So in this verse, we come across a topic. Now in here, we've got the view, meditation, and action, 3 things. More often, you'll come across them as 4: view, meditation, action, and result. We find these everywhere, in philosophy, but even if you're not a philosopher, if you look at Milarepa's 100,000 songs, you'll see that Milarepa doesn't deviate into much detail about philosophy and mind, but he often talks about view, meditation, action or conduct, whichever word you like, and result. So what is this? This is a template through which we can analyze anything that's a path, really. Any school of Buddhism, what's their view? What do they meditate? How do they conduct themselves? What are their rules, their morality, their ethics? And if you have that view and you practice that meditation, and in between meditation sessions, the way you relate to others, ethics, morality, conduct, then what's the best possible result? So we can analyze our Buddhist schools as we do. And those of you who were with me for the 4 Dharmas of Karmapa course, we did it then. We can analyze other faiths. What is their view? what is the meditation and so on. And we can even apply it not just to faiths, but in a way to individuals. What's their view of life? What do they think is worthwhile? What do they think is true, untrue? And then so on. So I need to define these four because this is the way certainly our Kagyu scholars, Mahayana scholars, Vajrayana scholars analyze a system. The view means the way we understand everything, life, but of course, because we're Buddhists, the way we understand the Buddha's teachings about everything and about life. That's our view. Now, view can be two things. It can be your philosophy. So it's like saying, what's your view is, which philosophical school do you belong to? And then you can say, oh, well, I'm a this or that. Generally I'm Theravada, I'm Mahayana, and Vajrayana. Or you can say, I've got a Kagyu view. Or then within the Kagyu, some of the Karmapas seem to promote more a Shentong view, other Karmapas more a Rangtong view. All of those, you can say philosophically, I've understood a bit, and I think this one's got it best. That's my view. That's the first. The second view is because of your practice. And because of your practice, and not practice alone, because of your past karma, your past lives, which give you the depth of awareness and understanding either you have or you can awaken in this life. We talk a lot about awakening our past bodhicitta. Then through that, then it's not a question of blah, 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 or writings and philosophy and schools and I follow this tradition. It's how you experience life and what for you is number one, top of the list, most important, and second and third and fourth and bottom of the list. Where you want to invest yourself, give yourself, your values, and just in general, the whole way you are experiencing everyone and your karma and life as it happens. And that can go deeper and deeper, and Mahamudra's there to help us with that. But then when you have a view, then the second thing is, now it's usually called meditation, but what it means is your own practice in the intimacy of your own being, your own mind. So usually we get the chance to work with that when we're on the cushion and we put our body in a posture and we do things with our mind. But generally, this second thing, meditation, doesn't just mean formal meditation practice. That's our special method. But it means when you have the space, when you're quiet, when you don't have to deal with neighbors, family, your job, anything, whatever, when you're quiet and on your own with the possibility of really taking a deep breath of oxygen of why you're really alive. Thinking about things, and then beyond thinking, just being in resonance with experience. Then what are we doing? Meditation. Then when we look at the word in Tibetan, gom means habit, and this puts the finger right on it. That was good. Right on it. We are a creature of habit, and through this second department, we are changing our habits for what, through our view, number one, we think is better. We are changing our attitude, our thoughts, our emotional reactions, our time wasting, so many things. Because of our view, we are developing new habits and getting rid of harmful habits. But that's when we're in the intimacy of ourself. That's not always the case, because we have life. Most people here are not yogis in caves. They're not even monks and nuns in monasteries, which are busy places anyway. So a lot of our time is interacting with other people, life situations, our karma. So there, we look at number 3. How do we conduct ourselves in relation to other people? Because that's very important. In our 2 accumulations, wisdom and punya, goodness, then most of the punya, the goodness, we develop in our interactions with others, our wisdom as well. So then what moral, ethical, and then very deeply moral, like here we're talking about Mahamudra, the view. How do we apply that? So and then number 4, we don't have it in this verse, but if we have it, if you do those things, you have that view, that inner practice, that way of living your life, where can it take you? So let's take the Theravada tradition, or more generally Shravaka traditions, as an example. Their view is the view of no self, 4 noble truths, 8-fold path. That's their view. Their meditation is shamatha and vipassana, in the way they do it. Shamatha as the 4 dhyanas, and then their vipassana as the wisdom of no self, applied to the 4 dhyanas. Their way of conduct is based on the 8-fold path. So the maximum end result they can get from that is to become an arhat. They don't hope to become Buddha, they hope to become an arhat. So it's just an example of these points. It's a template. What's your understanding? How do you apply that in your own quiet and intimacy? How do you apply that in your karma, your life with others? Where is it taking you? Where can it take you if it's taken to the full? So now when we come to Mahamudra, amongst all of the Buddhist views, then it says, what is thou view? It's to cut through all misinterpretations of the basis. That's why in earlier verse we had basis. So we need to understand what was the basis. Now, Buddha mind, your Buddha nature, your Buddha potential. We need to really understand it so well and so clearly, not a fuzzy idea. Words like the Buddha within. The what within what? What's Buddha? If it says, you're really Buddha, I'm really Buddha, what does that mean? What is Buddha? We need to know what is Buddha. When it says within what? Can we take a huge scalpel and cut ourselves open and ta-da, reveal a golden light shining inside your heart? Within what? Within each thought, within each feeling, and so on. So remember, we're in a general, very, very general overview of coming verses. So I can't say too much, because it's much better we go in precise detail in the verses that will follow. But whatever we haven't got, or we've got wrong about the view, we must get to the bottom of that and get rid of misunderstandings. And in particular, it says, remember the basis is the 2 truths. So we must understand ultimate and relative truth. And the fact that we are Buddha. Now, I'd like to, what can you say, put Ken on pause for a moment. Not just to drink coffee, but to share with you something Tai Situpa said, which I find hugely important. And it made me think a lot. And in fact, this week I've been thinking and really wondering about our human history in Europe, in the West, in America, and wondering what things were like in the past. But certainly when he first came to the West and after he'd been here for a few years and teaching, he said, both in public and privately in conversations with me, how astounded he was to meet so many people who hate themselves, who have self-loathing, or who don't respect themselves, have a very poor feeling about themselves, poor opinion. And he said, I really can't get it. So obviously it means that he wasn't used to that amongst Tibetans. He said, I can see how you can hate somebody else. That's really easy. He said, how you can't stand somebody else, you really hate them, or you feel repulsion for them. He said, but how can you hate yourself? He couldn't get it. And then the same with people have low self-esteem, no self-esteem. And because of that, what he's said is that since then, he's really made a point, as much as he can, whenever it's relevant, to tell people, and he tells them so beautifully, you are Buddha. Ultimately and truly, you are Buddha. Have no doubt about it. The rest comes and goes. Of course, relatively temporarily, it's obscured. But he just brings us back again and again to this confidence that the truth of our mind is gentle and pure, it is good and it is wise, and it is kind and full of qualities. That's who we really are. That's who we really are. The rest is a passing delusion. We need to deal with it. Otherwise, we'll never be what we really are, of course. But he insists on that again and again. The presence of the Karmapa, I remember the 16th Karmapa so beautifully, without words, just made you feel that. He was it, radiant like the sun, and he made you feel that that's how we all are inside. It was an amazing transmission. Without saying a word, without doing a ceremony, didn't need to put a special hat on. You were just there. You were just there. It became so obvious. And then the good teachers, Akon Rinpoche and so on, they really help us with this, because somehow in our modern society, there is a lot of this. Blame, self-loathing, so on and so on. I think many things these days foster that. And it's a huge topic. It's a huge topic when we have people who have histories, who have trauma and so on. How much we need to go into things to a certain degree, but how much we can also reinforce them by going into them, and so on and so on. Huge area of Western psychology. And I was wondering, has it always been this? I was trying to think back to Shakespeare, to older literature, back to the Greeks and the Romans, do we find self-loathing and self-deprecation and so on in there? And I really wasn't very successful. But anyway, these days, I really appreciate teachers like the Karmapa, like Tai Situpa, like Akon Rinpoche, and many wonderful teachers like Khenpo Sotin, Khenpo Damcha Dawa, and so on, who really bring out the best in people by emphasizing the Buddha nature, the Buddha potential that we have. So anyway, this first line is about getting rid of misinterpretations about this Buddha that we truly are. And so that's the view we need to develop. Now, obviously, to do that, the best thing is to really study well the Buddha nature teachings. They're the best we've got, whether it's in Tibetan Buddhism, we find them there. We find them also in Japanese and Korean Buddhism, in Zen. Then the teachings of Maitreya, brought to us through a Sangha, and especially this called Jut Lama in Tibetan. Those teachings on Buddha nature, 440 verses, they are the basis for Zen, they are the basis for Vajrayana Buddhism. It's a very profound, not easy topic, so it needs a lot of peripheral explanation, as I've explained before. So this is the first line, that we need to make sure we've got our understanding of Buddha nature correct. So then we come to the meditation. So meditation for Buddhists, we got all sorts of things, shamatha, concentration, visualizations of deities, all sorts of meditation practices that I'm sure you're doing or you know exist. But when it comes to Mahamudra, when we're in this second point, meditation, when we're in a private, uninterrupted space where we can go deeper, go in the right direction, then the main meditation isn't to visualize this or concentrate on that flame, do this work with your energies. It is to apply the view. Apply the view. Let your mind light up in wisdom. And I'm remembering one of, I think 1972, 73 maybe, in Samiling, we had a wonderful Japanese Zen master, Soshu-san. Soshu was at the time, he was deputy abbot of this wonderful monastery, Ryutakaji, in Japan. Very good Zen teacher, and with very little English. So in the old shrine room there, he was teaching, and we were sitting doing sesshin, doing the zazen. And then all of a sudden he said, like Samiling, right? Samiling in the winter, dark shrine room. He said, "Turn on the light." And so somebody a bit nervous jumped up to the light switch. Then he finished his sentence, "In your mind." Turn on the light in your mind. Do you know, that guy taught me how to strike a match. Not directly, not to me, but watching him strike a match was, I think, one of the best transmissions I ever got. Totally one-pointed, non-conceptual, beyond words. There's no way I can describe it, but seeing him strike a match was like, every moment was perfect. It's like those calligraphies when they've done a perfect calligraphy. Never seen anybody strike a match like that since, and I'm working on it. I reckon maybe one day I might get enlightened when I strike a match like he did. Anyway, our meditation practice in Mahamudra is not to do us something, but to apply the view to whatever is happening right now in this moment. The two truths, the basis, Buddha nature, the stream of consciousness, the presence of Buddha nature, always there, to learn to apply that view. Now, if we detour for a moment into our graduate, here we talk about Mahamudra once you got it, right? Karmapa's telling us what Mahamudra is. If you're if we're on the path to that, you're doing Mudra, you're doing the foundations, you're doing Shamatha, you're doing Vipassana, then all of that will lead you to a point where sitting with your teacher, the timeless, changeless, ultimate truth will be there. We can't say you experience it because there's no you, there's no teacher. It just is. Then after that, our task on our own, because you can't drag your teacher around everywhere or have them in your backpack to pull them out anytime. We need to, once we've been shown and affirmed Buddha mind, we need to go back ourselves, learn to be quiet, still, and to turn on the light of our mind in meditation so that Buddha mind is there. More and more often, for longer and longer periods, until that flip over when Buddha mind becomes our default state. So the way we do this, when it says the meditation is to attend to that undistractedly, it is whatever we're doing, to make that nature of mind experience affirmed by our guru come to life in that moment. If you're writing a letter, if you're working in the garden, whatever it is, then that is our intimate practice. Of course, it requires training, and we often do that on our cushion. That's where we start. We start by making the mind quiet, very quiet, stably quiet, reliably quiet, and rekindling the Buddha nature awareness in the quiet. And then still on a cushion, we let thoughts come and feelings come, and we maintain the Buddha nature awareness, if we call it that, in that moment. And bit by bit, we're ready to get up off the cushion and go out there into life and people and circumstances and still not lose the blessing of our guru, the Buddha nature experience. So that is our meditation. And then it says to become proficient in all aspects of the meditation, which means learning how to apply it no matter what's going on, no matter how busy you are, no matter if you're feeling upset and angry about somebody, or if you're feeling desirous, lustful, and jealous, if you're feeling very, very tired and sleepy and your mind's got brain fog, as people say these days. Doesn't matter. We need to apply what we found on our cushion and what we found through the grace and amazing lineage blessing of our guru. We need that to be alive in each moment. So there is this word proficiency. It's a nice word in Tibetan. We're applying it to our mind. But if you can imagine like a super athlete who could do almost anything in the Olympic Games, they could run faster, they could hurdle faster, they dive in a pool and swim faster, and then go and do gymnastics and do the most graceful, beautiful things, kick goals in football, You know, their body is totally fluid, able, their intelligence, their knowing what to do in this circumstance, that circumstance. They could do all the Olympics. So then we'd say, you know, that's a really, what's the word, proficient athlete. Our mind needs to become a proficient athlete. And the proficiency is in never losing the Buddha blessing, never losing the openness, the awareness to change this Buddha mind, no matter what is happening in our relative stream of consciousness. And stuff will be happening. You won't go to some Dharmakaya where it's not happening. Just look at the Buddha's life. Just look at the Buddha's life. The Karmapa in his present talks is talking about the Buddha's life and some of the things that happened. It was busy. He had a lot to deal with, and he dealt with it beautifully. So that's our conduct. So in this prayer, we don't go on to result. The result will be total Buddhahood. It says, may, so the prayer is, may, oh dear. Am I still there? My screen just blinked. Yeah, I'm good. We're praying to have confidence in the view, and that applying the view is the finest meditation and the finest conduct. So then now, if we go to our structure, that was verse 8. That was a brief explanation of the meditation that's to be practiced. Now we come to an extensive explanation of the meditation to be practiced. We have several parts for that, A and B, two big sections. First, how to cut off embellishments of the ground with the view. Whatever we're getting wrong, overstating, understating about the basis, the ground, our Buddha nature, we want to get rid of those mistakes through the view. So again, how do we do that? A brief treatment, and then an expanded treatment. There, the expanded treatments, verses 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. So 5 verses in the detail, but today we look at the overview. So I can explain some, but then we can see those 5 verses that are coming are going to explain with more precision. So first, let me, if I find my papers, give you the transmission. Again, a very important verse. I mean, the content of this verse you do need to know. Maybe you might not remember the words, but what it's saying is vital. Chunam tamche semji nam trulte, semni semme semji ngotong. Tongshing mangak chiyang nawate, lek paratene, shitsa cho parisho. All phenomena are illusory displays of mind. Mind is no mind, devoid of any mind essence. It is void, yet unceasing, manifesting as anything whatsoever. After careful examination, may the ground and root of everything be, and now I think in what I sent you, there are a few words missing because my one just says be. May the root of everything be. Now it's not let it be, kind of be. It's just there are 4 words missing that you need to write in. So may the ground and root of everything be known as it is. Be known as it is. So we've got 3 steps. If you do the graduated stages of Shunyata training, you'll see very clearly these 3 steps. But we need to know in Mahamudra, there are 3 stages of understanding. And they are stages. So we need to work on the first one first until it's clear. And then on the second one, and the third, and the fourth. So the first one is that all phenomena are illusory displays of the mind. All phenomena are illusory displays of the mind. I'm sure you've heard this, and maybe you think, believe it, that's true. But just hearing the words, knowing that Buddha said them, knowing that our teachers say them, knowing that's the truth of the matter, is not enough. We need to dig into this again and again and again, and deeper and deeper and deeper, until we've got it absolutely. All phenomena are. So what do we mean? Just now, there's a lot going on in space. There are telescopes, there are things traveling beyond the solar system. We have an understanding of how vast this seemingly material universe is. So many billions upon billions of stars, and endless planets, and so on and so on. And then just in this world, this tiny world, one tiny bit of a vast universe, which might be part of multiverses, how much in this world? 8 billion people with their lives, trillions upon trillions of animals in the forests, under the waters, in the air. Everything, all phenomena are illusory displays of the mind. They are mind. This is the key point. Everything is mind. And that mind is deluded. There's not one exception. So that needs to be crystal clear for us. And like it says, no doubt about it. So the first step is everything is mind. So very briefly, and I think in one of the earliest courses of these Zooms, we covered this ground. We go through 4 stages of Buddhist view of emptiness. We start with the simplest view, which is that of what are called the Vaibhashikas. The Vaibhashikas are the Buddhists who followed the Vaibhasha. And the Vaibhasha means the great treatise. So to put it very, very briefly, Buddha taught no books, no writing. People learn by heart, people practice meditation. After a couple of 100 years, writings, scriptures. After another couple of 100 years, universities, Buddhist universities, schools of thought, lots of debate, and lots of presentations of the Buddha's teaching, and in particular, Abhidharma, this analysis of mind and matter, the 5 aggregates, form, feeling, cognition, samskaras, consciousness, and so on and so on. And then there appeared one called the Mahavibhasha, the great treatise, which was like puts it all together, all that Buddhist information, analytical information of mind and matter, how it makes samsara, how the one triggers the other and makes a stream of consciousness and so on, and how we can get out of it by putting an end to it. So followers of that great treatise were called the Vaibhashikas. For them, there is a material universe. There's matter. There's matter. There's human bodies out there. There's the universe, and behind matter is the play of the five elements. But it does make a material, and already at the time they had atomists, so they talked about the universe having its own reality, being made of the tiniest particles. And what we are is an awareness of this material universe driven by the five elements. We're a mind. Mind is, matter is. So their view is the Buddha's teaching is to take this mind of ours, that through the power of karma programs matter to make the universe do what it does, to take this mind of ours and free it from suffering. But in their view, matter exists out there, there's an endless universe, and mind exists as its experiencer. That's to put it briefly. To understand them, we need to go into the details of how they express all of that, and in particular, to learn the vocabulary, especially the five skandhas, the five aggregates. Eye, ear, nose, tongue, mouth, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and then all of the rest of the vocabulary. Come back to that in a second. They were the Vaibhashikas, mind and matter. The next big school of thinking, it's not one school, it covers many schools, but looking back, they all think roughly the same. There's kind of just a minute. Mind and matter, right? When you're talking about matter, the universe, other people, can we ever get kind of out of our mind to go and check out that it's really there in the way that our mind experiences it? Because our experience is always subjective. It's what I see of things, it's what I hear of things, smell of things, taste of things, touch of things, and what other people tell me about things, and what I think about things. I'm in this five aggregates. I'm in the samskaras, I'm in the cognition. I've got these mind labels, these concepts. I've got consciousness which connects me. So it seems like there's a material universe. And talking with everybody else, yeah, tree, yep, all right, you tree too. Everybody hands up, tree, yep, there's a tree out there. We're all agreed, right? But they say, you can't say that's absolutely true. You can only say that's true for us humans, that it's subjectively true. So they don't say it's not true, but they just say, we'll never know. We'll never know. We'll only know what we experience. It's like, imagine if I had a TV camera in my garden here. Garden's there actually, okay? I could suddenly see a dinosaur on the TV screen and think, is that true? There's a dinosaur in the garden? And then I could actually go out into the garden and check it out and see that, no, it was something else. The camera's gone a bit funny, whatever. You could check it out. But we can't get out of our own perceptive processes to check out that there is the objective reality that we're experiencing. We can't. And we know very well now, we've got so much science to help us, that what we can see as one color, then animals which are what we call colorblind will see differently. Which one's true? Maybe we're projecting colors onto things that aren't there. No way of telling. Anyway, so they put a question mark. Now, who's doing this? They're called the Sautrantikas. Sautra means sutra. Sautrantika means we follow the sutras. So they got a bit fed up with the Vaibhashikas, because the Vaibhashikas didn't want to study all of the Buddha's shorter sayings, middle-length sayings, longer sayings, all the sutras, and they wanted it all in their book, the great treatise. One book by one person sums up all of the Buddha's teaching. And I think, no, there's something, you think you've got it all sorted out. Let's go back and listen more carefully to each of the Buddha's discourses. Let's go back to the sutras rather than some scholars' analysis of the sutras. So there were Sautrantika sutra followers, and they put this question mark because they realized that all of our perception is subjective. They don't say reality is not there. They say it is there, but we'll never be able to really pin it down. This is putting it very simply. You need to look into their arguments, their debating technique, and so on and so on. So that's the two Shravaka views, or Hinayana views, they're called, lesser views. Now we come to the Chittamatrans, and we won't detour into it here, but many people might say that the third Karmapa who gives us this text was a fan of the Chittamatrans and that he was presenting their view. It's not true. But some people, especially in other traditions, think that, and you'll see why in a moment. So now the Chittamatrin means mind only. Chitta, mind. Matrin, alone, uniquely, just mind, simply mind. And they say mind and matter, look, what are we talking about? From the moment you were born up until now, every mountain, every tree, every person, everything you ever experienced was an experience of your mind. That's it. All we've been dealing with now in our samsara, and all we'll be dealing with all the way up to enlightenment, is our mind's experience. The rest is blah, blah, blah. We want to explain our mind's experience. So we turn to philosophers who spent their whole life wondering about, there must be a tree, there must be something out there producing this experience in me. So how does that work? But however the philosophy works, it's blah, blah, blah to tell you a story to explain your experience. It's blah, blah, blah to tell you a story so that you can be comfortable with your experience. You can have a whole scientific system of explanation for everything and everyone. And psychology, for what goes on inside people, it makes us comfortable to the point where we live inside those sets of explanations. And it becomes difficult for us to actually live in the moment of our mind's experience. But the point here is, it's so obviously everything mind. So this is going to hit you one day like a bulldozer, if it hasn't already. Everything you have ever experienced, the hugest mountain, the most distant stars and galaxies, has been an experience of your mind. And in particular, our Buddhist journey is working with that experience of mind. That's it. The rest is blah, blah, blah. So then they have a wonderful analysis of mind. a three-part analysis we've looked at together in the past. Past karma that generates your mind of the present moment, your karma, your unique experience generated by past. So you can't do anything about that. You had the karma, you made it. He gave you mum, dad, brothers, sisters, poverty, wealth, good health, bad health, and all the rest. That's one thing. Second thing is how you project onto that, how you relate to it. So it's called imagination. It's something's happening, and then whether we relate to that as a bodhisattva or as a samsaric being, or whether we see somebody as a friend, an enemy, a treasure that's given to us to develop, or a rotten bastard, or whatever it is, then there is how we are projecting onto our karmically generated experience in this moment. That's where our Dharma work is, how we can change our relationship with experience. Most of it. We can actually change the experience a long time through making good karma, but that takes a long, long time. So the generated experience, the way we relate to it, and then number three, what's the real truth of the mind that's going through all of this? So anyway, the Chittamatrans, who have those basic three positions and who talk about 8 aspects of consciousness, they tell us all is mind. And then when we come to the fourth of the major levels, it's called middle way. They say, great. You really understood, didn't you? That everything's mind. Samsara's mind. Enlightenment's mind. The distant mountain is mind. Thought is mind. Blessing is mind. And then they're a bit like that detective, but I've forgotten his name. It's old. It's an American series with a guy in a raincoat. You know the one I mean.
Columbo.
Thank you. Columbo. Thank you very much. Where he listens and he listens. And then at one point he said, no. But just a minute. Just a minute. Mind. Excuse me, but what are you talking about? This mind. Can you tell me what it is, please, that's doing all of this, that's made me who I am, that's going to, and that's doing this, all this mind thing. Like if it's my computer right here, I can shake it, I can take it apart, I can turn it off, and I can say, this is doing my Zoom for me. But this mind you keep talking about, I mean, you do talk about it a lot. Can you please tell me what it is, where it is, anything about it? To which the poor Chittamatran can only say, it's your mind, isn't it? So Middle Way says, it's a really wonderful explanation. It got you that far. And your thing about the generated karma and the way you relate to it and what's really going on, excellent, very helpful. But it falls flat, just in the same way that all Buddhists say there's no ego, there's an illusion of ego, I, me, but when we take it apart and see what's really going on, you can't find it. Your mind, this thing, you mind this, mind that, doesn't work, does it? You can't find it. You can't find it in yourself, let alone show it to me. So that's the middle way. Just to put it very briefly, these 4. So when we study voidness, rather than jump into preconceived ideas, received things, the union of voidness and clarity and all of this, if you work through those 4 levels, what Khenpo Sultim used to say to me is, when you do this, you need to forget everything you ever thought and put yourself in the shoes of a Vaibhashika. See the world as solid, out there, immense, the power of the elements. Feel yourself as a mind experience it and understand how valid it is from their view, their point of view. So when you've done that, then extract yourself from any view and then put yourself in the Sautrantica's place. He says, you'll see all of them, they make such sense. When you're in any of those shoes, the rest of them don't make sense. So you need to do their meditations a bit, be in their place, and then you really get it. And then you can understand the reservations and the contradictions and gradually work up through the various levels of Madhyamaka, from the great Madhyamaka scholars until you get to where we get to. So here in this verse, the first thing is all phenomena are illusory displays of the mind. They are mind, that's the first point, and it is a mind that is deluded. Why is it deluded? Because of the first two of those three things. It's deluded because what you're experiencing, that you take as the world, that you take as John, Fred, Mary, mother, brother, sister, generated by your karma to be experienced uniquely by you in the way that you experience it. That's karma. That inherited mind interpretation of your parents and life situations and so on, we can change by changing our relationship to it, our thinking patterns, thinking, emotional patterns, emotional behavior, emotional intelligence, and so on, all these things. But both of those are highly colored by you just now. It's your karma, your way of experiencing the world, and that just came. And then what can be changed? The habit of relating to it in the way you do. So when we say illusory or delusory, we mean subjective here. Illusory and delusory doesn't sound nice. Like if I tell you you're deluded, I'm not being very kind. If I tell you your experience is subjective, then that sounds okay. It's what's meant by the word illusory. And then we go on, the second line. Once we're convinced that everything is mind, then we can go on to, well, what is mind? And we can explore mind with the help of our teacher, not by yourself. You need help here. We need to learn how to look with the tools of Vipassana, Mahamudra insight. We have so many steps to try and discover what mind is. And certainly not to tell ourselves a story. Not from anybody, not from Nagarjuna, not from Longchenpa, not from anybody. We're not going to sit looking at mind and saying, yes, it's this and yes, it's that. You need to strip your mind of preconceptions and look at it nakedly, rawly, in the way that your teacher will show you. And so we find mind, we can't find anything there doing it. We can't say it's blue, pink. We can't say it's in my heart center, it's in my right shoulder, it's in Mount Kailash, it's up there in Betelgeuse or some galaxy. We can't find anything, anywhere that you can say mind. And in a coming verse, it will say, even Buddha never found anything you could say, this is mind. Even Buddha, nobody found. Yet even though there's nothing to be found, this thing we call mind for convenience is constantly manifesting. So clearly, so vividly. If you've ever done a painting, made a movie, you know the work that goes into it. Each moment of your mind's experience is perfect. So clear, no matter what it is, heaven or hell, in that instant it's there. And then it's gone. There's nobody or no thing making the next experience in the present moment. It comes from the past. And it manifests, and it's gone. So although we can't find the mind that's doing this as a something, it is without doubt that whatever we call mind is manifesting all the time, uniquely for you and uniquely for me. Void yet unceasing, the verse says. It never stops. Even when you're deeply asleep or unconscious, the continuum of mind never stops. You can never find anything there you can put your finger on. Void yet unceasing, yet manifesting, and it can be anything. So after careful examination, may the root and ground of everything be known as it is. And I'm sorry to take so much time, but I need to get through a minimum, a few more minutes. Now, I should have brought one in. The VHS cassette, do any of you remember those from the distant past? A VHS cassette, right? And inside, you've got this brown ribbon, this brown band, right? So Khenpo Sotin was teaching me at a time when audio cassettes were what we used for music and teaching recordings, and VHS cassettes were coming in, right? More or less. So he says, this is wonderful example for the Chittamatrin, the third of our schools, understanding of mind. So he says they have a thing called all basis consciousness, universal basis, alaya vijnana. That's like the tape. When we make karma, so something's actually happening, people talking, shouting at each other, being kind to each other, whatever it is, when we're making karma, that's like when you're making the movie. The tape's turning, you've got a camera, and all the little molecules on the tape are being shifted because of what happened. It's being programmed when we make the karma. And then the VHS cassette of, what can it be? Summer in Mallorca, okay, goes on the shelf. And maybe it stays on the shelf for 20 years. So if you pick up the cassette and you look at it, listen to it, take a microscope to it, there's no Mallorca images, sounds, it's just brown band, like all the other cassettes, nothing there. So from the time we make the karma until that karma ripens, there's nowhere you can find. It would be wonderful if we could sit in meditation and then go into alaya vijnana. It might be a bit scary or overpowering to see everything we were, everything we did, all the karmas we made that are kind of queued up, waiting to be triggered. But it's not like that. There's no karma cupboard. There's no place in space where all our karmas stored. It's like looking at the cassette. Nothing to see, nothing to hear. But when you put it in the cassette player, and whenever you put it in the cassette player, then on screen, you've got the beach, you've got the sound of the waves, the kids screaming, whatever it is. It's there. So when our karma ripens because it's triggered, like putting it in the machine, like somebody you made the karma with 10 lifetimes ago now has been reborn in your world. And they come into your life. And then that triggers the karma. It's like putting the cassette in the machine. There is something tangible, sounds, images. So in the Chittamatrin's way, then our all-basis consciousness, our stream of consciousness has the power to be imprinted by karma, invisibly afterwards, until such time as the karma is triggered when our own experience, our own very personal and subjective experience happens. It's a very, very, very good analogy. The cassette and that kind of understanding of having a mind that can be programmed by karma is very helpful. It's just now we have to see all of that happens, but without a brown tape in ourselves. When we try and find the place where all that is stored, we can't find it. But we can only observe again and again that when the triggers happen, past karma comes flooding out. So here we learn that everything is mind that gives us our impression of an out there and other beings, and gives us an impression of an in here and experiencer, both, like in a dream. So we'll come back to all of this. But when we look for mind itself, we can't find it. That will be step 2. Step 3 will be what's called clarity, where even though we couldn't find mind, wherever we looked, however hard we looked, and each moment, each living moment on our cushion, when we felt me, my mind, we tried to find it, catch it, couldn't find it. Then even though there's nothing to be found, nevertheless it manifests. You can't get out. You can't have a holiday from your mind. You can't switch it off. It's going to be going on and on and on until nirvana. It's amazing. Okay, so thank you very much. And let's dedicate what was good today, and a reminder that next Saturday is the first Saturday of the month. It's our monthly Tonglen for the Tonglen group. And so our next Mahamudra prayer session is in 2 weeks' time. Thank you. Sonom diye tamche zikpani topnenye pedranam pamchene je gamachi pala trukpai sipe sole drowa resho janchub semcho rimpoche ma jepanam jechuchik jepa nyampa mepadam kongne kongtu parwaresho Gewa diye nyududa, jaja chenpo trukjone, drowa chikjang malupa, deye sala kaparasho.